missing Parth, missing Tulsi, even missing Adya and Mother Nitai Priya. So, missing Parth. And Meghna as well. But, yes, Rajaputra Vavridhe. Okay, what is that about? Alright, so yesterday I actually found out, I did do some research because we had this Brahmin discussion yesterday, that 4 out of the 5 acharyas were born in Brahmin families. So Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and even Jagannath Das Babaji, all born in Brahmin families. But Gorakishore Das Babaji was born in a Vaishya family. So I was clarify that. But they make such an emphasis on Brahmin by qualification and not birth that I don't know why I didn't know that they were actually born Brahmin. But lo and behold, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and Bhaktivinoda Thakur very much emphasized the prominence of Gorakishore Das Babaji, who was born a Vaishya. So anyway, just thought that would be interesting, just because I like to have the facts right. I don't like to speculate. So I'm glad I was able to do some research. I'm glad actually yesterday's very interesting class happened, so that I could at least clarify some things, and also it was very nice. It gave me a lot to meditate on for Nirjala Kadashi. So a lot of purifying, So when things like that are brought to your attention, it's actually good. It's healthy for you to self-reflect and say, okay, maybe this is exacerbated, but maybe there's also layers of truth here that you have to really look at. So that was a healthy Nirjala Kadashi meditation for me yesterday. But to continue on, to carry on with the Bhagavatam. Where are we now? We were talking about I think we can do 33 again. Yeah, 33 was a little everything was a little off yesterday. We had a very nice Harinam at the end of the day, but maybe we'll do 33 again. That's a good idea. But anyway, just at this time, King Yudhishthira was considering performing a horse sacrifice to get freed from sins incurred from fighting with kinsmen, but he became anxious to get some wealth, for there were no surplus funds outside of fines and tax collection. So, even Maharaj Yudhishthira, to perform big elaborate sacrifices, wealth is needed. Just like here, we don't have big elaborate sacrifices, but to maintain even offerings of flowers, offerings arti, an offering of nice food stuff, we need some funds. So this is why we kind of engage, and not only that, pay for the house, pay for the vehicles, pay for all the insurances. Luckily, someone is helping us pay for the electricity, but water bills, taxes. There's so many things that in order to do yajna or sacrifices, even what's small is happening here, you need funds. So even King Yudhishthira also. He was actually in anxiety. He became anxious to get some wealth. But not for his own sense gratification. Like, all right, well, if I get wealth, I can eat nicer, I can have more comfortable luxuries, I can have finer bed, finer house, all these things. The use of wealth is how can we serve the Lord. So it's, in that, it doesn't mean you have to live like a complete pauper and sleep on the ground and things like that. There can be some level of, basic necessities and comforts so that you can do your service nicely. So anyway, even Maharaj Yudhishthira is leading by example here. Then, this verse, text 33, we'll do again. Tada bipretam alakshya Prataro chuta chodita Tanam prahina majahrur Udichyam dishi burishaha Tat his abhipretam, wishes of the mind, alakshya, observing, brataraha, his brothers, achyuta, the infallible Lord Sri Krishna, charita, being advised by, dhanam, riches, prahinam, to collect, ajahu, brought about, udichyam, northern, dishi, direction, bodhisyaha, sufficient. So understanding the hearty wishes of the king, his brothers, as advised by the infallible Lord Krishna, collected sufficient riches from the north left by King Maruta. We talked about this yesterday. Maharaj Maruta, one of the great emperors of the world, he reigned over the world long before the reign of Maharaj Yudhishthir. He was the son of Maharaj Avikshit and was a great devotee of the son god known as Yamaraj. His brother Sambharta was a rival priest of the great Brihaspati, the learned priest of the demigods. He conducted one sacrifice called Shankar Yagya, by which the Lord was so satisfied that he was pleased to hand over to him the charge of a mountain peak of gold. This peak of gold is somewhere in the Himalaya mountains, and modern adventurers may try to find it there. He was so powerful an emperor that at the day's end of sacrifice, the demigods from the other planets, like Indra, Chandra, and Brihaspati, used to visit his palace. And because he had the gold peak at his disposal, he had sufficient gold in his possession. The canopy of the sacrificial altar was completely made of gold. In his daily performances of the sacrificial ceremonies, some of the inhabitants of the Vayuloka airy planets were invited to expedite the cooking work of the ceremony. And the assembly of the demigods in the ceremony was led by Vishwadev. By his constant pious work, he was able to drive out all kinds of diseases from the jurisdiction of his kingdom. All the inhabitants of higher planets like Devalok, Pitralok, were pleased with him for his great sacrificial ceremonies. Every day he used to give in charity to the learned Brahmins such things as beddings, seats, conveyances, and sufficient quantities of gold. Conveyances are, I know, like a conveyor belt, but what is a conveyance? The action or process of transporting someone or something from one place to another. So transport system. So bedding, seats, conveyances, and sufficient quantities of gold. Because of munificent charities and performances of innumerable sacrifices, the King of Heaven, Indradev, was fully satisfied with him and always wished for his welfare. Due to his pious activities, he remained a young man throughout his life and reigned over the world for 1,000 years, surrounded by his satisfied subjects, ministers, legitimate wife, sons, and brothers. Even Lord Sri Krishna praised his spirit of pious activities. He handed over his daughter to Maharishi Angira, and by his good blessings, he was elevated to the kingdom of heaven. First of all, he wanted to offer the priesthood of his sacrifices to learned Brihaspati, but the demigod refused to accept the post because of the king's being a human being, a man of this earth. He was very sorry for this, but on the advice of Narada Muni, he appointed Sambharta to the post, and he was successful in his mission. So we learn lots about different personalities. They almost seem like otherworldly, mystical. It could be something of fairy tales, you could assume. But also it's very likely that, we don't really know much. We don't understand, and we have only Kali Yuga understanding of history. And so we assume, yes, everyone is like us. Everyone, a human span, we've studied from what we've observed in our little knowledge that human beings only live 100 years, so there could be nothing else.
Yeah, if dinosaurs their remains wouldn't have existed, people thought they are fairy tales. Like unicorns or like any other being. So if there's no remnants of them, we cannot say that they didn't existed. So for now, if like 200 years ago, nobody has seen the remains of dinosaurs, people say, oh, this is a fairy tale. So nothing exists like that.
Well,
so
even our understanding of dinosaurs now by the theories are actually fairy tales. Like that, it's always coming up. Like I was seeing that with the findings of these whatever large lizards or beings, dinosaurs, that much of what they put together was kind of like an artist estimation of how the bones would go. So then, like when I was a kid, dinosaurs, they were really scaly, kind of like big lizard, crocodile things. And then now I think it's something they're teaching, that now dinosaurs are like big chickens. They had lots of feathers and things like that. So, yeah, just that's what happens when you kind of...
True.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That it's like, okay, show me, I believe. So that's a very ridiculous argument to give anyway, because your mental conception is very limited, and so you cannot truly know things with information. You have to build a hypothesis at least to get away and dig to get an understanding of that.
And even better than that, actually.
Faith is important.
Yeah, well, even better than hypothesis is that's why we have a process of dissension, where like we should take knowledge from realized souls, because we can hypothesize all we want, but we only can get so far, because actually we're like someone in the dark, trying to find our way through the world with a lighter.
True.
So you can only glean so much information with such a limited amount of light, and in your own senses, which are in themselves, scientifically speaking, perceiving 0%, or next to 0% of reality. So it's it's actually a very troubling situation for the living entity, for all of us who are trying to seek knowledge, because we are given only tools. I mean, in our body and our senses are tools. We're given only tools that are limited. Like if I asked you guys to, let's say, the new seva for the day is, I want to, we want to turn up over all the dirt in the yard, and then I just gave you like a little spade or a spoon. And I said, okay. So now you're out there with a spoon trying to turn out all the dirt. So actually, this is what we're doing when we're trying to perceive the world with our senses. And we're trying to trust others, like the so-called scientists and the historians and the archaeologists. They're trying to do a big job, get absolute knowledge with a very limited tool, with this body and its senses. So, ultimately what we need to do is we take knowledge in dissension from perfect source. So ultimately, that's what the parampara is for. You have Krishna, the perfect being. Actually, Prem Prayojan did a really, really nice job, I felt, explaining why there must be a God. Because everything in this world, if you needed a review on the subject matter, everything in this world is actually moving due to something else. Like, for instance, I just had like a little baby son, He's only being nourished and moved and brought into existence by me and his mother. And we were only brought into existence by our mothers and fathers. And like that. And everything has been moved by something else. Given life by something else. So at the end of that, if you trace that back, at some point, there has to be one independent mover who's not relying on something else. Or it's a never-ending loop. Which that's impossible. How could everything... there has to be one who is independent, who's already actualized. To actualize everything else, there has to be one who's already actualized. So you actually see that this is actually a proof of God. And then he actually even said that this is actually what the scientists are looking for too. They're trying to, from the materialistic point of view, they're trying to break down everything. And what are they looking for? The Higgs boson, right? The God particle. They're looking, they can label it the God particle. Why? Because this particle has to be so small and so foundational that everything else is built from it. They're trying to find the end but they can't even find the end to how minuscule the parts of this world are. So, at one point they found cells, and at one point they found the atom, and then inside the atom now they found electrons and protons and neutrons. And all these things, and now inside all of those they're finding quarks and all these other things. But it's actually infinite. They can't find the end, but they're trying to find the end.
The other thing about quantum physics, no one understands it, and everyone claims to understand it.
Yes, well, the more you get into it, the more you realize.
That you know nothing.
Yeah, that
it's
we
like
know
the universe
nothing.
within everything. Like,
yes.
The more you go in, the more universe unveils.
Yes, which is why it's exceedingly more important to not try and find knowledge this way. Trying to find knowledge by our limited senses, because it's impossible actually. It's like trying to go out there and do a huge job with a spoon. You only have a spoon to look at it through and to work with it with, and it's just not ideal. But if you take knowledge from the perfect source, but even what they're looking for, the point I was trying to make, is that they're looking for something that's independent. It's not formed by anything else. It has actually all the qualities that all the religionists say God has. All of the independent, universal qualities, not depending on everything, self-sustaining qualities that God has. So actually, that's why they call it the God particle, because they're also looking for God. So actually, the truth of everything will come that there has to be behind everything an all-powerful source from which everything is foundationally built from. And everything else, we can study, what we can see is everything moves from something else. Even materialistically, you can say everything it could be broken down. Like, oh, my arm, there's trillions of cells in my arm creating the whole existence of the arm. And so on. And in the cells, we learned it in school, the mitochondria and all these things. So, and so on. And it goes further and further down to an atomic level and to even a subatomic level and so on. It just keeps going. So really, the intelligent thing to do actually is to try and find the perfect source and try and understand, but not just blindly, oh, okay, well, I like this one, and I blindly follow this. No, there should be philosophy. It should make sense. There should be an explanation. And actually, from what I found personally, and I studied all this, not all of them, but I studied all the main ones that I could find, was that the Vedic conception, and especially understanding karma and so on, the transition of lifetime to lifetime, is the only one that actually makes sense. Because all the other ones, they cannot explain. There's one burning question. There's a couple things they cannot explain. But one really burning question they cannot explain is, well, why are some babies born, with, bone cancer? I had a sister, she lived 20 minutes, only 20 minutes in this world, actually. So why could that happen to her, who she's apparently, where's the justice in that? And I can, be a rascal, or Hitler can be born and he could live a full life and things like that. Where's the justice? So actually the only answer is karma. The only answer is the idea of karma, which is being studied through physics, like an object in every action has an equal and opposite reaction. That's like a little facet of karma and so on. So anyway, it's very, very important to not create your own philosophy, even though it is the tendency of the living entity. It is the tendency of the conditioned living entity to try and speculate, figure it all out with what we have. And it needs to line up with your direct perception. Don't get me wrong. It's not that you shouldn't use that facility of perceiving, but you have to also understand, if you rely only on your imperfect senses, you will make mistakes. You'll have the tendency to cheat. You'll ultimately be an illusion, and in the end game of that is you will not have the correct conclusion, because you're using a very faulty set of tools to study the case here. So we we take perfect knowledge from a perfect source. So the Vedic conception is understanding God, the perfect source. And the job of a guru, everyone is actually asked to be a guru. It's not that only these exalted fellows in history can be guru. There's only few who actually are such a high-level guru that that the whole world, the Jagat Guru, that the whole world could and should follow them. But we're all asked to be guru in getting knowledge from a perfect source, handed to us by someone who also received that knowledge. And the source of that knowledge goes back infinitely to God. So actually that's what Bhagavad Gita has explained, how Krishna, why he came to reinstate Bhagavad Gita. It's because he had a nice parampara going, from when he told to the sun god, and then to Manu, and then he told to Ikshwaku, and then it was carried down throughout the kings of history. But then, at some point, it may get broken. And if it gets broken, the Lord himself will personally take care to make sure that the knowledge is not going to be broken. It's always available for everybody. So that's actually what Bhagavad Gita is. So anyhow, yes, this is interesting. But the success, the last paragraph of this, is success of a particular type of sacrifice completely depends on the priest in charge. In this age, all kinds of sacrifice are forbidden because there is no learned priest amongst the so-called Brahmins, who go by the false notion of becoming sons of Brahmins without Brahminical qualifications. This was we were trying to read this yesterday and make this point well known, but it got a little bit distracted. But this is actually the truth, that really the Brahmin class, even the Kshatriya and true Vaishya class, is so far hampered that it's not really existent in its pure state. Even though there is a so-called caste system still available. And don't get me wrong, there are those who are the most qualified to be like Brahmins, many of the top level pundits. There are really, really qualified people in the world who are much more qualified being Brahminical than, say, myself, for sure. And many others, even, Mataji brought actually a good point. We're here in the West, and we're also, doing these things. We're taking initiation and so on. But actually, to be like the Brahminical qualities of old, it's not possible for us. So we just do the best we can, and that's why the only yajna, it says at the end here, in this age of Kali, therefore, only one kind of sacrifice is recommended. Sankirtan yajna, as inaugurated by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So that's why we do this. That's why we gather in a group, or we try to get everyone together, and we should do some glorification of the Lord. That's what actually Bhagavatam is. This is Sankirtan now. We went out last night, and we had two streams of Sankirtan. Some people chanting the holy names of the Lord, and then some people trying to explain in English to others why they should consider checking out some Sankirtan literature. And so on like this. This is the only recommended yajna, because we're not qualified to do all the other things. So actually for Nirjala Ekadashi yesterday, what we did, and I'm really grateful that Piyush, you came out. I'm really grateful Madhav, you helped organize and inspire everyone to come out, is that this is actually the best thing. This is the best type of yajna. So, very good. I think maybe I was evaluating yesterday. Why did I have personally such a rough time yesterday? Did we chant the pranam prayers yesterday?
I don't know.
Yes. Now I'm very anxious to always chant the pranam prayers to get the blessings of our divine parampara before trying to speak in All right. Text 34. Tena sambrita sambaro
Tena samvrita sambharo
Dharmaputro Yudhishthira
Dharmaputro Yudhishthira
Vaji Medhai Stribir Bito
Vaji Medhai Srivirbhito
Yagyai Samaya Jadarim
Jagai Samya Dharim.
Tena,
Tena,
with that wealth,
with that flag.
Sambrita,
Samvrita,
collected,
collected.
Sambadaha,
Sambhara,
ingredients,
ingredients.
Dharmaputra,
Dharmaputra,
the pious king, Yudhishthira, Yudhishthir, Vaji Medhai, by horse sacrifices, Tribi, 3 times, Bita, being greatly afraid after the battle of Kurukshetra, Yagyai, sacrifices, Samayajat, perfectly worshipped, Harim, the personality of Godhead. By those riches, the king could procure the ingredients for 3 horse sacrifices. Thus, the pious King Yudhishthir, who was very fearful after the battle of Kurukshetra, pleased Lord Hari, the personality of Godhead. Purport. Maharaj Yudhishthir was the ideal and celebrated pious king of the world, and still he was greatly afraid after the execution of the battle of Kurukshetra because of the mass killing in the fight, all of which was done only to install him on the throne. He therefore took all the responsibility for sins committed in the warfare, and to get rid of all these sins, he wanted to perform 3 sacrifices in which horses are offered at the altar. Such a sacrifice is very costly. That might be like a point of confusion. Well, why would pure devotees be offering horses? We don't believe in killing and things like this. Because there actually was proper Brahmins back then, what could be seen at these sacrifices is that you could transition these animals to a human birth or even higher, like a demigod birth and things like that. And actually people were able to witness the horse body being sacrificed and like a demigod body coming out and rising up. This it seems like a thing of legend, but now today, that's why in Kali Yuga all these sacrifices, a cow, horse, all these sacrifices are forbidden, because we can't do any of them properly, and instead we'll just do useless killing. But this is actually not useless killing. It's a bona fide sacrifice, and so on. So it's actually said that this is a proper sacrifice that one should do to atone for many sins of the killing of human beings. So actually Yudhishthira, because he's a great devotee, he wasn't responsible for the war. He didn't want the war, and he tried at every step to be peaceful. But ultimately, he was forced into war. But even so, because his party was successful and they won the war, he took all the responsibility for the death of everyone, and he put it on his shoulders to try and atone for all of that sin on behalf of everybody, which is actually that's what a great leader actually does. Who they're taking charge over. Like for instance, Prabhupada would get really sick, and the devotees would ask Prabhupada, why are you getting sick? You're a pure devotee and things like that. And he said, I'm getting sick because my disciples are not following. And so he was exemplifying actually this same kind of principle, that the guru actually, he offers to take the karma at initiation. He offers to take the karma of the disciple. And I was actually telling Tulsidas this yesterday, that it's very important to act with really sublime character when you're an initiated devotee, because your guru is taking the reactions for what you do. And he said that's why it's also not recommended you just let anyone and everyone touch your feet and things like that, because when you accept such a position and they become so humble before you and things like that, you actually you take their karma. That's kind of the process. That's why you go to great personalities' feet and you touch their feet, because you're kind of begging them to please assist me, make me pure. And they can take it, they can handle those reactions actually. So anyway, and this is a little different, but Yudhishthira also took the reactions of everybody for all the sins committed in the warfare. And he wanted to do a great religious sacrifices to try and purify situation. So it's very costly. So even Maharaj Yudhishthira had to collect necessary heaps of gold left by Maharaj Maruta. So he was like king of the world, but he had to go find an ancient treasure of old from Maharaj Maruta to actually do the sacrifice, like a mountain peak of gold. Imagine how much money. Actually, I was just seeing the gold and silver is through the roof right now, actually, which is really interesting. But, I mean, in today's world, but how much gold, a mountain peak of gold is crazy, a crazy amount of wealth. So they actually, that's why they secured this thing, to do this sacrifice. So anyhow, and the brahmanas who were given gold in charity by King Purita, that's also part of the sacrifices. You have to give profuse amounts of wealth to the brahmanas. That's part of a sacrifice. This is also proper to make sure. That's why every time we have a guest here, we're trying to do very diligently make sure that they leave with a nice, I mean, today's gold or access to resources is money, but to leave with a suitable amount of money, they never demand money from anybody, but it's our job, because they do the sacrifice of organizing Sankirtan, Harikatha, all of these things. They've taken the time to travel. We should cover their travel costs, everything. But we should make sure they leave with sufficient charity, or, because if the Brahmins aren't pleased, no sacrifice is properly complete, actually. So, so just like that, that's why they needed so much wealth. The learned Brahmanas could not take away all the loads of gold given by Maharaj Maruta, and therefore they left behind the major portion of the gift. And Maharaj Maruta also did not again collect such heaps of gold given away in charity. Besides that, all the golden plates and utensils which were used in the sacrifices were also thrown in the dustbins, and all such heaps of gold remained unclaimed property for a long time, till Maharaj Yudhishthira collected them for his own purposes. So Maharaj Maruta, he had all this gold for his own sacrifices, and then at some point it was not necessary. You can't use a mountain peak worth of gold. It's not necessary, actually, at some point. So Maharaj Yudhishthira, it was left for his sacrifice many thousands of years later. So it's very interesting. But anyway, besides that, all the golden... read that. Lord Sri Krishna advised the brothers of Maharaj Yudhishthira to collect the unclaimed property because it belonged to the king. The more astonishing thing is that no subject of the state also collected such unclaimed gold for industrial enterprise or anything like that. This means that the state citizens were completely satisfied with all necessities of life, and therefore not inclined to accept unnecessary productive enterprises for sense gratification. Maharaj Yudhishthira also requisitioned the heaps of gold for performing sacrifices and for pleasing the Supreme Hari, Personality of Godhead. Otherwise, he had no desire to collect them for the state treasury. So Prabhupada's actually pointing out that in the ancient past, people were very satisfied with what they had. And that's actually what we should actually do, like in this world, we have so many material desires, like in Shastra, Dhruva Maharaj, he had this material desire for a kingdom because his mother, his kind of arrogant mother-in-law, actually, not, how do I say, it's like stepmother, his arrogant stepmother told him that he didn't have access to his father in the lap in the kingdom because he wasn't her son directly. And so he, as a 5-year-old boy, he had a burning desire to have a greater kingdom than his father, so he would have, some position. So anyway, he ends up, finally, long story short, he got the mercy of Narada Muni, he got the mercy of the divine mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudeva, which is the Lord himself. So Lord and his name are non-different. And then he actually sat and he chanted the Lord's name very sincerely and performed austerities in Vrikshasana, the tree pose, for months, 6 months. And then he stopped eating, he stopped drinking, he stopped breathing even. And then it became so intense. When someone does such an intense amount of austerity, the whole universe is impacted, and all the demigods who were in his body were very disturbed. And they begged Vishnu to please appear before him. And so he appeared before him. And actually, Dhruva became such a mystic yogi that he was able to perceive the Lord fully in his heart, in his meditation. He was in samadhi and bliss. And then at some point, that in his heart, it disappeared. And he was very disturbed, and he opened his eyes. And there, actually, then the Lord was right before him. So anyway, he prayed in the in that he's like, I was praying for a broken piece of glass, but now I have the most precious jewel, and it's ultimately it's the Lord Himself. He now has the association of the Lord Himself, and now he's feeling all embarrassed. So actually, this is the reality. Nothing that we get. The Lord ended up making him take a boon, and He gave him a whole planet and kingdom. But actually, Dhruv Maharaj, he is like all of us. He wasn't satisfied with that because he had gotten something much greater. He actually had the Lord Himself as a personal associate for some small amount of time. And that's so much better. That's so much better than any material thing that we want. And we think we'll get the material thing. Trust me, I mean, I can be a small example to you guys because you're a little younger in experience in this lifetime. All the things I prayed for and wanted did not give me happiness, actually. The Lord gave me almost everything. Everything that I wanted, He gave me every bit of it. But it didn't give me not one shred of happiness. The only thing that gives me happiness is now, I have the realization that I should more intensely serve the Lord. And now everything that He's given me, I'm trying in some way to use for His service. So, it's not perfect. I have my attachments, I have my tendencies, I have things that are not going to be ideal, but I've had this realization to some degree in my life. So anyhow, this is actually the scriptural conclusion as well. You'll never get anything of this world. No material desire that you have, when you receive it, it won't actually give you the happiness you think it will. But the Lord can give you so much more happiness than you could even fathom exists. And I've seen this in my life. All of my most happy moments are actually simple but sweet devotional moments in my life. And I'm yearning. I don't know. They come always unexpectedly. I have no idea how they come. But when they do come, I'm like, wow, these are the best moments. So, at least that's my personal experience. So, but the people were very satisfied. They were very satisfied with what was given to them. They did not need much for their happiness. Whatever their quota was, easily given by the Lord, they accepted and they were happy. And we could all be like that, actually. But anyway, it's Kali Yuga, so we're not like that. And that's why we have so many problems. So one should take lessons from the acts of Maharaj Yudhishthira. He was afraid of sins committed on the battlefield, and therefore he wanted to satisfy the supreme authority. This indicates that unintentional sins are also committed in our daily occupational discharge of duties. And to counteract even such unintentional crimes, one must perform sacrifices as they are recommended in the revealed scriptures. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Yagyarthat karma nonyatra loko yam karma bandhanaha, that one must perform sacrifices recommended in the scriptures in order to get rid of commitments of all unauthorized work, or even unintentional crimes which we are apt to commit. So unless you perform sacrifices, this is actually, this is good for some of you guys who might feel burdened by your life responsibilities. Let's say you're burdened by, I have to do this much work for this agency, I have to do this much work for this, I owe my parents this, I owe, all these things. Actually, this is due to our karma, and it's actually due to, how do we say, impious things that we've done previously. And due to that, there's a certain level of burden given to everyone in this world due to their past karma. But this is the solution. If you have burden, perform sacrifice as recommended in the scriptures. What's the main sacrifice for Kali Yuga? Yeah, chanting the Harinam, but more important than even Harinam is the next part, Sankirtan. Yeah, to in a group, glorify the Lord. Gather with and the most prominent and powerful way to do that is Harinam. So if you want to be freed from your burdens, which I'm giving a hint now because I know everyone wants to be freed from their burdens. This is the main thing to actually focus on. Um, the proper sacrifices that please the Lord. And there's so many unintentional crimes we are doing. Like every time you rent a car, you don't realize how many bugs you're killing. Just driving. Every time I drive my car, bugs. Smash, smash, smash. Bugs are killing. These are actually unintentional crimes, but the reaction. We are in the kitchen. We're trying to serve the Lord, but now cockroaches are coming. And now we're killing them. And we have no other option actually at this point. They have to be killed or they'll take over the whole place. So we actually have to keep doing yajna to counteract this. Not that we should try to strive to sin, but there's so many things you can't control. So by doing so, one shall be freed from all kinds of sins. That's why Krishna says, Sarva dharman parityagya mamekam sharanam vraja. Surrender unto me. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I will deliver you from all these things. So in these processes of surrendering to Krishna, only He can save us from all of these unintentional sins we are doing. And they get reaction. If we don't, it's like a perfect system where if we don't offer our life to the Lord, we will just get burdened by karma. Yes, I know. But yeah, I just want to make sure you're not coming out of consciousness. So anyway, by doing so, one shall be freed from all kinds of sins, and those who do not do so, but work for self-interest or sense gratification, have to undergo all tribulations accrued from committed sins. So this is the tendency. This is yesterday. Some points were brought up, about me personally, and I could sit there. I could have gotten very offended. I could have gotten so offended. But you know what? I was realizing that, at some level, my own self-interest and sense gratification is mixed up in this. That, when somebody criticizes you, actually they're doing you a huge favor. If I respond very, humbly, and I don't know if I did, but if I respond humbly, that actually is for, they're going to take that. And what do you get? You get the opportunity to be purified of this. Now it's brought to your attention. Now it's brought to everyone's attention. So I thought it was actually a great favor given to me yesterday, that I be more sincere in my dealings, to not work for my self-interest and sense gratification, and to work purely for the devotion of the Lord. So actually, this is what we need to do. Or we're going to just keep undergoing all tribulations accrued from committed sins. So therefore, the main purpose of performing sacrifices is to satisfy the Supreme Personality, Hari. The process of performing sacrifices may be different in terms of different times, places, and persons. But the aim of such sacrifices is one, and the same at all times and in all circumstances. What is viz? What does that thing mean? Viz dot. It means in other words. Viz. Dot. In other words, satisfaction of the Supreme Lord Hari. That is the way of pious life, and that is the way of peace and prosperity in the world at large. Maharaj Yudhishthira did all these as the ideal pious kings in the world. Ideal pious king in the world. If Maharaj Yudhishthira is a sinner in his daily discharge of duties, in royal administration of state affairs, or in killing of man and animals is a recognized art, then we can just imagine the amount of sins committed consciously or unconsciously by the untrained population of the Kali Yuga, who have no way to perform sacrifice to please the Supreme Lord. The Bhagavatam says, therefore, that the prime duty of the human being is to satisfy the Supreme Lord by the performance of one's occupational duty. Let me just see how much longer. This is a good... So let's go for it. Let any man of any place or community, caste, or creed be engaged in any sort of occupational duty, but he must agree to perform sacrifices as it is recommended in the scriptures for the particular place, time, and person. In the Vedic literatures, it is recommended that in Kali Yuga, people engage in glorifying the Lord by chanting the holy name of Krishna. Kirtanad eva Krishnasya muktasanga param vrajet, in the Srimad Bhagavatam 3:31:1. without offense. By doing so, one can be freed from all sins and thus can attain the highest perfection of life by returning home back to Godhead. We have already discussed this more than once in this great literature in different places, especially in the introductory portion by sketching the life of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And still we are repeating the same with a view to bring about peace and prosperity in society. So this is like the main essence of the Bhagavatam, that the main sacrifice, what we need to do in recommending Kali Yuga, engage in glorifying the Lord, namely by chanting His holy name offenselessly. So this is what we're trying to do. And yes, we chant the holy name every day, but sometimes our mind, chanting holy name, but mind is on something else. You know, like Amarendra Prabhu jokes, you know, many devotees chanting Hare Krishna, but in the heart, money, money, money. You know, where is my, how am I going to get my, what I need in life? You know, it might not just be money, it might be anxiety about work, it might be anxiety about all these things, all these fears, but actually, just by doing this, we'll have nothing to fear. But it takes faith, as Piyush was talking before. It takes actually faith in the Lord, in faith in His scriptures. This is perfect knowledge. He's not leaving us empty in our pursuit to be happy in this world. He's giving us everything we need. But will we take, actually? So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is giving. And this can bring about peace and prosperity in society. Not just peace, oh, I'll be peaceful and I'll be poor. No, you're prosperous as well. You'll be prosperous. So, just wait and see. The Lord has declared openly in Bhagavad Gita how He becomes pleased with us, and the same process is practically demonstrated in the life and preaching work of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The perfect process of performing yagyas or sacrifice is to please the Supreme Lord Hari, the personality of Godhead, who gets us free from all miseries of existence, is to follow the ways of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in this dark age of quarrel and dissension. Maharaj Yudhishthira had to collect heaps of gold to secure the paraphernalia for the horse sacrifice yagyas in days of sufficiency. So we can hardly think of such performance of yagyas in these days of insufficiency and complete scarcity of gold. At the present moment, we have heaps of papers and promises of their being converted into gold by economic development of modern civilization. That's what Prabhupada calls money. This paper it's said to be a promise. It used to be backed by gold, but now it's backed by, I don't know what it's backed by. It's some actually scam that the powers of the world have secured over the world, where they've taken actually all the wealth and they've replaced it with paper, and now everyone's fighting over paper. And we all have a rat race for paper. Actually, reading this first canto years ago, I invested in silver. This is one of the reasons I did that, because I'm reading this. None of this money is real. There's not real wealth here. Not to say that you get heaps of material acquisition, and so now this is going to solve all my problems, because it's not, because we'll die, we have to lose it all anyway. But he is kind of alluding here to the craziness of the money system. So it's the papers and promises of their being converted into gold by economic development of modern civilization, and still there's no possibility of spending riches like Maharaj Yudhishthira, either individually or collectively, or by state patronization. Just suitable therefore the age is the method recommended by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in terms of the Shastra. Such a method requires no expenditure at all, and yet can award more benefit than other expensive methods of yagya performances. Like even yesterday, it was brought up, we haven't done the Pran Pratishtha ceremony here. It is good, we should do it actually, but we've been instructed because, one, we inherited these deities, we didn't, but we've been instructed to wait for, the proper personality who is ready to do the ceremony, and the proper time where we can actually, because actually to worship the deities properly takes a significant amount of sacrifice. And actually, even what we do every day, and you watch, we do things every day for the deities, and even every week and things like that, but we still can't meet a proper standard. So it's kind of recommended now, our Archana worship is really just means so that we can get together and chant Sankirtan. That's why we do archana. It's setting up, and it's training us so that we can actually maybe practice archana soon. So anyway,
There's many things.
what's that?
There's many things regarding this that I thought about. Like when I just read a quote yesterday from Srila Prabhupada talking about how Chaitanya didn't establish deities. He just came in to perform Sankirtan.
That's the main yag.
Yeah, and then also one thing is that I heard from Iyengar Prabhu how in the Krishna Balaram Mandir in Vrindavan, Srila Prabhupada only did the Pran Pratishtha ceremony
Just to satisfy the Brahmins.
just to satisfy the Brahmanas, and he said himself that the only thing that's actually necessary is just performing Sankirtan before the deities, and that actually is what inaugurates the Lord.
Yes. So that is the truth. Not everyone will accept, but that's the truth. Actually, that's the truth. This is the real yagya for the age. This is the real sacrifice. Everything else is just facilitating the worship of the Lord via the Sankirtan yagya. So, but it requires no expenditure at all, and yet can award more benefit than other expensive methods of yagya performances. The horse sacrifice yagya or cow sacrifice yagya performed by the Vedic regulations shouldn't be misunderstood as a process of killing animals. On the contrary, animals offered for the yagya were rejuvenated to a new span of life by the transcendental power of chanting the Vedic hymns, which, if properly chanted, are different from what is understood by the common layman. The Veda mantras are all practical, and the proof is rejuvenation of the sacrificed animal. There is no possibility of such methodical chanting of the Vedic hymns by the so-called Brahmins or priests of the present age. The untrained descendants of the twice-born families are no more like their forefathers. Again, what we were talking about. Yes, I wish we just kept reading because so much could have actually been explained. But they're no more like their forefathers, and thus they are counted amongst the Shudras, or once-born men. The once-born man is unfit to chant the Vedic hymns, and therefore there is no practical utility of chanting the original hymns. So even chanting the original Vedas is not, there's really no practical use for it because we cannot do it. We don't have the proper pronunciation, the proper proof. We don't have the proper qualification. Whether you're initiated into being a Brahmin or whether you're born being a Brahmin, it's not going to happen. So, and to save them all, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu propounded the Sankirtan movement or yagya for all practical purposes, and the people of the present age are strongly recommended to follow this sure and recognized path. This is what the Bhagavatam will be the conclusion of the Bhagavatam. In Dwapar Yuga, deity worship was the Yuga Dharma. In Treta Yuga, yagya was the Yuga Dharma. In Satya Yuga, actually meditation and Paramatma, the Supreme Lord, was the Yuga Dharma. But now in Kali Yuga, all of the Dharmas were always present and very good in all ages. But for Kali Yuga, the only chance is the glorification of the Lord via chanting His holy names. So, Harinam Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai. That's why we say that every day, because that's what we're doing. And everything else is just facilitating that. So anyway, another good opportunity for Harinam Sankirtan Yagya tonight. We went out yesterday. It was very, very successful, actually. It seemed you guys were having a lot of fun. I was also having a lot of fun both chanting with everyone and then also distributing books to some of the interesting folks we met at the at the thing. Yes, very interesting. It's always nice. Actually, everyone you meet who comes to Krishna in the beginning, everyone is just so interesting. Just like I was so interesting. Madhav, I remember you were so interesting coming in. Piyush, you were also very interesting as well. But you were a bit more reformed because of your Vedic upbringing. But especially when the Westerners, they come to Krishna, there's so much baggage that's so funny oftentimes. And I had so much funny baggage coming to Krishna. I'm just so embarrassed, actually, with so many things I've done. But what can be done? But anyhow, Hare Krishna, I hope you guys have a good day. If you want to come out later, that would be really nice. I think, Madhav, at least for you, I think one of the best duties we can do today is to organize how we can have a really successful Harinam later. And then, like that. Hare Krishna. Thank you for joining online.